And this one does look like a ton of fun, so it's no surprise that this one is our Discord pick of the week. But this one is also my own personal pick of the week as well, because I think this one's got a lot of really cool mechanisms, and I think it's offering something a little bit more unique that I haven't seen with too many other games. But at the core of this game, it is a worker placement game, and the goal of this game is to try and get the most victory points at the end of 3 rounds. The way that you're doing that is by operating different cruise ships that are going into space. But the way that the rounds work in this game is that every time that you actually launch a ship into space, and any time that you complete one of the objectives of the game, you're going to be adding a cube onto these little progress trackers. Once they fill up, it's going to trigger a few different events and scoring to happen, but after that happens 3 times, that's going to be triggering the end of the game. But like I said, this is a worker placement game, and this is a non-blocking worker placement game, which means that you can put your worker where another player has put their worker, but when you do that, they do get a small benefit and then their worker goes back to them. But what's really cool about this is that all of these different locations are actually just modular tiles. So every time you set up this game, you're going to have different pairings of actions in the different locations out on the board. But also what makes this one very unique is this has a really cool mechanism where you can actually build these little connections between worker placement locations. And what that allows you to do is to use a worker placement location adjacent to you up to 2 connections away if you are able to build those connections between those locations. And that is really nice because for every worker that you put out on the board, you're actually able to take 2 actions. So if you have no connections in place, that means wherever you place your worker, you're going to be taking the 2 actions there, but as soon as you place these connections, you can start to take those actions between 2 different locations. And another detail with this is that if you don't have a connection in place, you can actually pay your opponents in order to use their connections. So this is just a really cool idea that seems like a lot of fun that I haven't really seen I haven't seen it in any other games. Like I said, the whole goal here is to try to get the most victory points by building spaceships, loading them with passengers, and then sending them off into space in order to get those rewards. And there's a bunch of different actions you can take. Of course, there's actions to gain different parts of the ship, and then there's also actions to piece them together. And the different ship parts can have preferences to certain passengers types, which do give you bonuses if you're able to get those passengers on your ship. But of course, you're also going to need resources in order to launch your ship. You're going to need food, oxygen, and fuel, and there are locations to get those, but you'll also need to schedule your trip in order to make it happen, which is one of the actions. It's going to let you gain one of these tiles here, which is going to grant you with different benefits depending on the different icons that that tile depicts, and this is going to go at the top of your ship. And when you do take the action to actually launch your ship, you're going to be dedicating one of your workers to that ship, which means that that worker is going to have to go through a series of sequences in order for that ship to launch, and then your worker is actually going to be moving through the different icons on that scheduled trip, gaining the benefits for each of those icons. There are also all sorts of upgrades that you can gain on your own personal player board as well. We're going to be tracking all your developments and any bonuses that you gain throughout the game. And there is also an action that allows you to recruit additional workers to your board so that you have even more workers and more actions that you can take on your turn. The game continues like this over those 3 rounds, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game. And if you do want to check this one out, I'll have it linked in the description below.